necessary for establishing and maintaining your family. Reserve your audio volume of Madam, I'm Adam today.
Welcome back to Ancient Jewish Wisdom with me, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and my wife, Susan. And we've been speaking about the power of language. And I want to focus for just a moment on the idea that I'm discussing this from an extremely practical and life-enhancing point of view. And that is that if you pause for a moment and think about what is the most important part of your body when it comes to your career, your work. Unless you are somebody who never speaks at all in his work, and it's really hard to think of a situation like that. It doesn't matter whether you're a plumber or a bus driver or whether you repair locks for a living, whatever it is you do, your effectiveness at creating wealth is going to be greater if you can communicate properly, if you can communicate well. I'll give you an example of something I saw myself just recently, where my wife and I had dinner at a restaurant, and we really enjoyed the time talking with one another. And at the end of it, I handed in my credit card, and when the waiter came back, it was something very interesting. This doesn't happen as often as you would think. It shocked me, but it shouldn't have, because everybody should do it. Do you know what he did? He gave me back my credit card and the slip to sign, and he said, "Here's your card, Mr. Lapin. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed your meal." And I thought, wow. He took about 10 seconds to look at my name on the credit card, and then he addressed me by name. That totally changed the experience. And don't think that it didn't change the tip. It did, because I felt very appreciative that he was relating to me, not just as another customer or as another restaurant patron, but I had a name. Using your mouth is incredibly effective. Learning how to communicate is enormously powerful. But words are like a high-velocity rifle round. They are very powerful, and they can do a lot of things. Interestingly enough, in the Lord's language in Hebrew, there is something fascinating to pay attention to. And that is that the last of the 5 books of Moses in Hebrew is called Devarim. Now in English, that means 2 things. It means words and bees. Now, in the context of the 5th book of the Torah, these are the words which Moses spoke to the children of Israel. Ele hadvarim in Hebrew. These are the words. So we think we know that what we're speaking about actually is the use of the word meaning words. But what have bees got to do with it? Well, it's interesting that in the very last tractate of the oral Torah, the entire transmission of ancient Jewish wisdom, that very last one is called stings. Yes, just like bee stings. That's right. Isn't that extraordinary? So the last book of the written Torah is bees or words. The last book of the oral Torah is stings. What's that all about? It's to tell you that words are just like bees. And that's part of the beauty of the Hebrew language, that we're using one word for bees and for words. You know what the idea is? That just like bees can do 2 things. They can give you honey, and they can also sting you. Words are just like that as well. Words can give you honey, and words can also sting you. And humor is a lot like that as well. When we tell jokes, we're using our mouth, aren't we? But there are 2 types of jokes. There are jokes that make you laugh in a sense of goodwill and friendship and camaraderie with your friends, makes you feel uplifted. But there's also another kind of joke. And that kind of joke is a negative kind of joke. And I think we ought to just get that out of the way first so as we understand those sorts of jokes. And Susan, you know just what I'm referring to.
Well, I think I do. That when you joke, you sometimes, what's bad jokes? They tend to be either potty humor, right? They're bathroom humor, and people laugh, but it's not a laugh that makes you feel close and warm towards another person. It's talking about something that you actually like doing in private. So it's cutting you off from another person. And then there are this sexual humor. And then there's blasphemy. And in general, negative jokes, I think, tend to fall into those categories. Or jokes at someone else's expense. In other words, a joke where you may be, hey, I'm going to make you laugh by telling you something terrible about that person, something funny. Those are destructive jokes. They break down relationships, healthy relationships.
And so you'll notice that's an absolute reality, that virtually every negative joke is either bathroom humor, sexual humor, or against faith, God, and religion, without a question. And we should, I think, perhaps also take a look at ways in which using speech badly can impact somebody's life in very real ways.
Can we just first, I think I want to pull it back full circle to profanity, which we started the show with. That what is profanity? Well, it's sexual. It's using sexual terms well, that shouldn't be used, period. It's using God's name in a bad way, or it's using bathroom activities, words for bathroom activities. That's right. Really when you're angry at someone and you say, I don't want to say it. But,
you better not.
But those are the things so it's interesting that bad words and bad jokes have those areas in common.
Very much so. That's right.
And now you want to talk about how you practically
I want to explain why it is that using vulgarity and obscenity and blasphemy, why these are really, really bad ideas. And I was doing a teaching to a group of young professionals. These were people who were training to become salespeople in insurance and financial services. And I asked them, I said, how many of you use profanity in your general language? How many of you drop blasphemous bombs and obscenities in your conventional conversation? And somebody said, well, do you mean when we're out with our buddies? And I said, yeah, just when you're out by yourselves. Virtually everybody's hand went up. Virtually everybody. Everybody does it. I said, well, have you thought about its impact on your career? You are looking to go ahead and make a success of yourself in one of the finest professions ever, the profession of selling, becoming a professional salesperson. And you're thinking of using blasphemy. And they all laughed and they said, Rabbi Lapin, do you think we're stupid enough to use bad language when we're with a customer or when we're with a client? And that was when I explained something very important. Of course, I knew that you're not stupid enough to use vulgarities and obscenities and blasphemies when you're with a customer or a client. I know you're not stupid enough to use it when you're interviewing with somebody hoping to get a job. But what you don't realize is that your brain, as mine, operates at a certain pace. Now, it doesn't operate quite as quickly as we think it does. And so while our brains work just fine to stop us from using a bad word, it takes a fraction of a second for our brain to find the right word to substitute in there. And so somebody might have been about to say, oh, that was such a blank time we had. And his brain says, oops, can't say that. I've got to find something that is a substitute. Okay, we had such a funny time, but it takes a fraction of a second. You don't hear that. You are merely speaking, but your customer, your client, the person interviewing for a job,
or the young lady you're trying to impress,
or the young lady you're trying to impress,
just go on to the romantic elements.
Looking at the romantic side, yes, exactly. They hear a slight pause, just a momentary pause, very brief. It's long enough to signal insincerity. That's what comes across. Try this yourself. Listen carefully, and from time to time, you will notice somebody pausing for just a second between words, very briefly. And what's really happening is that his brain is substituting a clean word instead of a dirty word. And you hear insincerity. What you hear is somebody, you don't automatically say, oh, he's cleaning up his act. What you hear is he's saying something that he doesn't really believe.
On a subconscious level, you may not say, oh, he paused, because it's not a 5-second pause,
No,
it's a
minuscule.
millisecond. But subconsciously, you're getting a picture of this person is holding something back, not being totally open with me.
Yes, that's exactly
And if
right.
I can add, one other point is when you get used to using certain words constantly, and that's the adjective you use, or that's the verb you use, you don't have the other words at your beck and call because it's lazy. You fall into using that word all the time. You don't get the practice of using 10 or 15 other words that might fit the situation.
And I think what we ought to do is wrap up this show by giving people some very practical advice straight out of ancient Jewish wisdom for improving the vocabulary of good words. You're absolutely right. People just fall into the habit of using bad words because they're the ones they know easiest and they recognize. They just are accustomed to it. How do you get beyond that? How do you manage to make it possible to expand your vocabulary so as to be able to communicate effectively without using words that make other people uncomfortable and that send the wrong message? And we have a way straight out of ancient Jewish wisdom that we can share with you, which is exactly what we're going to do here on TCT television in just a moment. So wait right there.
If you've enjoyed the rich wisdom of Rabbi Daniel Lapin, then we invite you to delve deeper into the mysteries of Genesis with Tower of Power, Decoding the Secrets of Babel. This Torah teaching best yields its secrets when conveyed by the voice from the rabbi's lips to his students' ears. This audio series includes The Curse of the Skyscraper, Baseball with Cain and Abel, and Pharaoh and the European Economic Community. This handsomely packaged volume includes a Hebrew language study guide too. To order, call 866-338-5033. And for your donation of $50 or more to TCT, you too can still enjoy Rabbi Lapin's easy blend of wisdom and humor while gaining powerful tools for defending your family, faith, and finances. Reserve your audio volume of Tower of Power today.
Thanks for being with us here on TCT as my wife Susan and I close off our discussion on the perils of profanity, which is also the name of an audio CD teaching in which we help people gain control of the most valuable and powerful tool at their disposal in both economic and social matters. Your ability to communicate, your ability to use your mouth effectively is one of the most powerful tools you have at your disposal. Exodus chapter 24, Moses took this book of the covenant and he read it in the ears of the people. Reading aloud is one of the most powerful tools imaginable. If I were to tell you the single most important thing you could do to change the effectiveness of your communication, straight out of ancient Jewish wisdom, here it is. Set aside 3 sessions every single week of about 20 minutes each, maximum, and read aloud